No, you guys, this is not leading to a collapse. This is the empire collapsing. I feel like a lot of people think that things always happen all at once. That's not how it works. The empire is collapsing. And Trump's kind of shock and awe campaign, federalizing the police and saying that he's going to be adding troops to all these cities, that is just getting you comfortable with it.
America is falling. The fall of the American empire is inevitable. It is already started. The United States is collapsing under the weight of its own corruption, its own greed and delusion.
Hello brothers and sisters, I really hope you're all doing fine from wherever you're watching me from now. Most white Americans feel like this is a punishment from God. Now, Americans are also feeling like there is no peace in the US at the moment, that the US is no longer a safe country as it used to be regarded. Most of the allies that used to work with this great nation are now running away to work with China and Russia. Now, is this the beginning of the end, or is this the collapse of the greatest country? So let's watch this video, then have a really quick discussion at the end of it. Thank you so much.
Billionaires, the Christian extremists and power-hungry politicians running the government aren't just looting the system, they are burning it down. They have replaced governance with fanaticism, diplomacy with threats, and reality with conspiracy theories. They gut agencies, they erase climate data and push for a theocratic state where democracy dies in the name of God and prophet. They dream of annexing Greenland and privatizing Gaza, ceding the Panama Canal, while dismantling the very structure that sustained American power. Foreign aid, it's never been about helping people, it's been about control. The US funds dictatorships, break unions, and rig elections to serve corporate interests. It props up the ultra-rich while working class at home and abroad gets crushed under its heel. And now, the vultures are picking apart the empire. When the US dollar loses its status as the world's reserve currency, the economy will collapse, will crash badly, and the military machine will grind to the halt. So the chaos that the American empire has inflicted and unleashed on the world will come home to roast. And when that happens, the only tool left for the administrations and for the establishment will be the force, the brute force. History shows that empires do not fade away, they implode. The question is not if America collapses or not, but how much destruction.
Does anybody else just feel like this country is on a path to being totally collapsed? I mean, I'm not trying to be rude or hate on the country, but does anybody else just have a sense that we are on a path of destruction? Because all I can see is that the things that once made us great seem to be disappearing. We don't have an industrial empire anymore. We don't build things. We don't do things. Everything gets farmed out. Everything gets sent overseas. We don't inspire anymore. The only thing that we seem to be doing is inspiring people to not come here. We are a empire that has grown to a point that where else can we go? Because every other great empire that's reached a pinnacle point in their lives has crumbled and fallen. The Greeks, the Romans, the English, the China, you name it. Every single major civilization that has grown to an empire status like us has crumbled. And we're next. And it doesn't seem that anybody really cares. And all we keep seeing is the politicians just systematically eating away at what used to make us great and what is now alienating us from the rest of the world. So I'm just wondering, does anybody else see it?
When the American empire finally collapses, historians won't be stunned by the greed of the elite. They will be stunned by the loyalty of the poor. That stopped me in my tracks. The working class didn't just vote against their own interests, they worshipped the billionaires robbing them. They slashed their own benefits, gutted their own healthcare, and cheered while the rich wrote off private jets as tax deductions. Not because it helped them, but because they were told it would hurt someone else. And that right there is how you rig a democracy without ever breaking a single law. Some laws were broken, but this tweet makes such an important point. The greed of the elite is expected. What is not expected is the loyalty of the poor, of the working class, to those who are taking from them. That is what is going to be studied in the history books.
How do we prepare our kids for the fall of the American empire? The world Gen X was trained for no longer exists. The career ladder, the stable middle class, the dream of home ownership. That future died in 2001. What replaced it was chaos, inequality, climate collapse, and surveillance. I'm not a scholar or a prophet. I'm a parent with Wi-Fi and a working bullshit detector. And I'll give you 3 things about it. Thing number 1. Teach your kids the difference between a fact and an opinion. That sounds basic. It's not. If your kid can't tell the difference between a YouTube conspiracy theory and peer-reviewed data, they are vulnerable. Help them learn how to read a source. Help them value science. Help them tell the difference between what they think and what they know. That's a survival skill now. That's not schoolwork. Thing number 2. Build critical thinking skills. There are systems at work that depend on your child being passive. They want kids that don't ask questions, that don't spot contradictions, that fall in line. Train them to ask why, who benefits, what's missing. A curious mind is dangerous to power. Keep theirs sharp. Thing number 3, teach kindness, teach hope. This world runs on division. They want your kid to believe other people are the problem, that immigrants are stealing, that the poor are lazy, that things can't get better. That's not an accident. That's propaganda from the people hoarding the wealth. Remind your kids that the real fight is not left and right. It's the rich versus the rest. Let them feel angry, but don't let them lose compassion. Kindness is a weapon too. No one handed us a manual for this, but we owe our kids more than silence and cynicism. Talk to them about what's happening in the world, that the world is hard, but they don't have to be hard with it. And for God's sake, take them to the library so they don't grow up to be Republicans. As always, like, follow, and share. Click the link in my bio.
We're at the end of an empire right now. It is the end. It's the end of this. And all empires always come to an end. The Roman Empire, the Greek Empire.
Right.
So what we're looking at today is the end of the American Empire. So it's a very dangerous time. It's explosive, with Palestine and Gaza. All the stuff that's going on is an end of times. Not biblical, but just an end of an era. And the trouble when this comes to an end, war follows. That's what I'm afraid of. I went to Vietnam twice. I was a pilot in Vietnam, so I saw war. It's not good, obviously. I feel for both Palestinians and the Israelis. And but we're in dangerous times. So real estate guys, like my friend Trump and all that, we get rich using debt. Whereas the average person is told to work hard, this is toilet paper, save this, stay out of debt. And they're going broke today. I'm afraid for the average punter out there, So we're in serious trouble because with the end of the American Empire, is China going to take over?
How far do we as Americans need to go to protect that wall? Like, is it, are the dangers so high that children spies, Jeffrey Epstein, if he was an intelligence asset, sex, like the craziest, most PDF file type shit, like there is no thing we shouldn't be willing to do for the greater good, or do we draw a line somewhere?
The switch track question, I would say, is really how much do you want to remain America's largest superpower? If you want to remain the world's largest superpower, if you want to remain the world's largest superpower, you're going to have to accept the dirt that comes with being the biggest bully on the playground. You're going to have to deal with the fact that we have some corruption. You're going to have to deal with the fact that we cheat our closest allies. You're going to have to deal with the fact that we hide and cover up things at the highest levels of leadership because the myth of the country has to be so powerful that others fear us. General Petraeus became the director of CIA. We were talking about that earlier. Yep. I had the privilege of being one of his workout buddies. Everybody who was Petraeus' workout buddy was really just a big kicking dog because the dude only did one workout every day. And he had been doing the same workout for 30 years. So he could kick your ass on eagle push-ups or eagle sit-ups any day of the week. It was just insane. But what was cool is you got this time with the general whenever you worked out with him. He would never work out with the same person 5 days in a row. It would be like you're his every other Monday person, somebody else is his Tuesday person, whatever else it might be. So I had this time with the general. He gave me this speech one day while he was kicking my ass in push-ups. And he was talking about how powerful the mythos was to him being an effective general in the army. And he was like, I do the same workout every day. He's like, you work out with me enough to know that this is my workout. So of course I'm better than you. But he's like, I'm not doing this for you. I'm not even doing this for me. I'm doing this for every new recruit who joins the army who finds out that their general kicks everyone's ass. That's why I do this. Because that new recruit isn't going to stop to ask themselves the question, well, maybe that general just does the same 5 exercises every day. Instead, that recruit's like, fuck yeah, my general kicks everybody's ass and he's 60 years old. I could be like that. I could be the general. That's America. We kick everybody's ass. He's like, I need to motivate that person because that person joins at a rate of 25,000 new people a year. It's like, I don't have to worry about the lieutenant colonel who knows my secret because lieutenant colonels retire at a rate of 200 every year. Right. So where's the focus? The focus is on making sure the mythos motivates the masses. And that was such a powerful message to me because I was like, holy smokes, here's a guy who lives his personal life around shaping the myth about his personal capabilities.
Nobody wants to hear the leader of our country saying, "Ooh, the empire is over." My agenda is to work out a way to decline that preserves the things we care about. I use the following example. When the United States, as a corner colony of Britain, decides it wants to do things its own way, the British come down and say, you can't. And the Americans, half of them take it, the other half are pissed off. So we have the Tea Party in Boston. I mean, exaggerating, simplifying. So then we have a war. But it's very important. The British go to war against the United States, their own colony, to say to the colony, you are not going to go your own way. You're going to do what we tell you. George III, King, sits in England, and George Washington sits here. And the British, to everybody's amazement, including George Washington's, lose the war. 1812, they try again. They fail again. And they reach a conclusion. We can't prevent it. And so they work out a live and let live deal with their colony. Even though they're competitors in many ways, we can work something out, and they do. But that will become the American strategy toward China. But it's not speakable yet.
Well, that's only the beginning of the story. The reality is that the United States is empire, the building up of which happened particularly after the Second World War, when the United States replaced the old colonial masters in Western Europe and Japan with its new informal empire. We didn't have colonies, with a few exceptions, but we very similarly managed. The United States has hundreds of military bases around the world in a way no other country has. No other country comes close. We operate an empire, and that empire is in deep trouble. It's shrinking. The war the United States went into in Korea ended in a kind of stalemate, not a victory. The war in Vietnam, an attempt to maintain the empire over there, the United States was flat out defeated. In Afghanistan, again. In Iraq, basically, again. Much of the pressure leading the United States to be so actively involved in the Ukraine war is also an attempt to hold on to a dominant world position that is in trouble, is shrinking. like every other empire in the history of the world, this one, having been born, having grown, having evolved, is now in decline. And turning to a government is what capitalists here do, hoping to slow, if not stop and reverse, that.
Folks, soon you'll be able to tell your kids about how the United States dollar was once the strongest currency in the world, and you were there to watch it all fall into ruin in the spring of 2023.
Are warning the collapse of another American bank could lead to a credit crunch and an economic slowdown.
As banks collapsed all around you, and how you had to pull your money out of your local banks and put it into gold and silver and real estate just to protect your family. Last night, Saturday, we got word that hedge funds are so scared of America's banking collapse that they're moving into European banks, buying up European bonds. That's how crazy it is right now. They'd actually trust Europe over the United States. And the credit crunch is just in the beginning phase right now. The next comes the collapse of these small banks. The Fed is trapped in a corner, guys, and that means they are facing a financial crisis unlike anything we've ever seen before. Let me lay it out for you. Over 50% of all American banks are insolvent, according to a report out this week. That means your money is not safe in these small banks, and they all know it. So here's what's about to happen. JP Morgan Chase will start buying up all of these smaller banks for pennies on the dollar. Then as the crash accelerates, we now expect Powell and the Fed to pump billions of stimulus into the failing system, even further crashing the US dollar. But as Brandon Smith reports, it's too late. Because now the national debt is over $34 trillion. There's simply no room left for absorbing a massive amount of additional debt as the banks collapse. So this is exactly what happened in 2008, but they didn't prepare this time. And now the Fed is trapped. Cutting rates means prices will skyrocket, so you're going to see prices continuing to go up at your grocery store. And if they keep things where they are, the banks will collapse as they are right now. So the banks are collapsing, and they're going to keep these rates where they are. But here's the real story, guys. Two things. This whole collapse benefits the billionaires. They want the control, the centralization of your currency. That's why the digital dollar rollout in the next few weeks is so powerful. This is perfect for these guys.
Well, petrodollar is dead. It just doesn't know it yet, but it's dead. The Saudis are cutting deals with the Chinese in yuan right now, using Chinese currency. The Chinese are some of the biggest purchasers of oil. If they're purchasing oil using their own currency, the petrodollar's dead. It's finished. Goodbye. It'll take a little while for the world to purge itself of this, but we are looking at the collapse of the American empire. It's happening right in front of us. And to be honest, it's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful. Because the petrodollar hasn't brought anything other than greed, American dominance, hegemony. It hasn't been a force of good. The petrodollar is supposed to be, if it's going to be a force of good, it's supposed to be the reserve currency of the world, a force of stability. But the United States has used that to leverage dominance over people, sanctioning people, or in the case of Russia, stealing hundreds of billions of dollars, stealing, theft, straight up theft. No legal justification for it. The United States just stole it because they can. Now, if you're another nation looking at going, wait a minute, you want us to buy into a system that's supposed to bring stability, but if we do something you don't like, you get to steal all our money. It doesn't work like that. It's finished. Goodbye and good riddance.
I don't want America to fail. I live here. My people are born here.
As leftists, we're going to continue to have a failure of recruitment if we don't account for all the marginalized people who are now embroiled in empire. Especially when so many leftists continue to overlook the unsexy parts of getting our political goals out there and immediately go straight to revolution. We haven't reached an organizing capacity on the mutual aid front, on the direct action front, to be able to even promise anyone that there'll be a semblance of anything in this revolutionary space that so many of us talk about. We lack true unity, and that poses a threat to any marginalized groups that we want to recruit into our efforts, because unfortunately they'll be the first ones thrown into the teeth of empire. It doesn't make sense to fantasize about the collapse of empire when we can't even get progressives into office in the first place. 2025 primaries are coming up, where a lot of progressives run and lose. What is our plan? You talk about mutual aid, but you don't engage in participatory budgeting for your city to determine how city funds are going to be used for your community. People are unhoused, but you continue to ignore electoralism, even though it is through electoralism that we can get things like affordable housing. You see how that doesn't add up? Yeah. Speaking of affordable housing, one quick action that you can take right now is to go to the link in my bio and sign a letter that urges Congress to pass a bill that will allow for the development of more affordable homes. Especially in this uncertain future that we face, we need that. We have to build these building blocks first before hoping that we can just go up against an empire that is armed to the teeth and full of people who organize better than we do.
Is the American empire collapsing?
Yes, it is. The question, the key question for everyone to be asking themselves, especially those in leadership, is how fast? And then the second question is, how do we arrest it to a certain extent? You can't stop it. It's impossible. But you can arrest it, and you can build a glide slope down which the empire slides, if you will, because there are equals in the world now. China, of course, is one of them. With nuclear weapons, you must say that Russia is one of them. And India comes very close to being one of them. It's a multipolar world now. You can't have a hegemon that is all things to all people 24/7.
We're not heading towards a collapse. This is the empire actively collapsing. Like, we're in it. This is the part in the history books that like has a name to the event, but like we're in it, so it's not being named. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was the Great War before they knew that there was going to be a World War II. And then, mind you, during World War I, they didn't know that it was going to be called World War I. You know what I mean? But we're definitely in the collapse. It's not the collapse is coming. No, like everything is failing currently, actively right now. The empire is collapsing right now. We are in the collapse of the American empire experiment. The experiment, and I've said this before, clearly has failed. Patriarchy has failed. The system of capitalism was not correct. Didn't really do much. Didn't really help. That including racism, on top of a whole bunch of other things, but racism being one of the things that literally built the country brick by brick, literally. Yeah, we're in the collapse. The collapse is now. Yeah, that's why everything looks so chaotic and crazy, and it's like, what's actually going on? It's because we're not actually on our way towards a collapse. This is just actually the collapse currently happening, and that's why we can't really make sense of anything, and it feels like so much is going on. We're not realizing like this is the part in the history books that already has a name, but they haven't named it yet because we're currently going through it. You know what I mean? But like this is the collapse of the American empire. I fully believe that. Absolutely.
I went to dinner with some friends last night, and the topic of American hegemony came up, meaning America being the center, control, power, focus of the world for the last century, and how America is actually losing its positioning as such. Prior to America, it was Great Britain. Great Britain for 100 years was the world's most dominant force due to its empire. And one of my friends couldn't fathom the fact that BRICS is happening and that countries like India, China, Brazil could come together and actually cause panic to Americans, to the markets, and disrupt what that means. And it got me thinking about how Americans are taught to exist in their country and taught to exist in their positioning and framework in the world. Growing up in America, you are taught that we are the center of the world, that we are the standard for democracy, we're the standard for economics, we're the standard for capitalism. And in most ways we are. America is like the capitalistic euphoric country ever to exist. Humanity is thrown out the window for capitalism in this country. I went to grad school in London, LSE. My dissertation was on China and India versus Southeast Asia. And it was the impact of the rapid GDP expansion and growth of both India and China over the last 50 years. Back then, that's now 60 years, over the last 60 years, and how that's really changed their positioning in the global sphere and the global economy. And having lived in Southeast Asia, I lived in Thailand and I studied, that was my base. And I went to India for a month, I went to China for a month, and then I went to like Vietnam, I went to Laos, I went to Japan, and I just studied amongst these people. And the way that Americans are viewed from outside of America, most Americans will never actually understand or really gather how we have force fed the world our Americanness in such a way that it causes people to, one, have complete disdain and
Hello, brothers and sisters. I really hope you're all doing fine from wherever you are watching me from now. Most people have been believing that the US is the biggest economy in the world. Of course, it is one of the greatest economies in the world. But now, if you try to compare the situationship in America right now and that in the last 20, 30 years, you can see a difference. Now, most of the people living in the US are so unsatisfied about so many things that are happening. Now, this can explain the reason why most people are also feeling that this might be the collapse of the biggest economy in the world or the greatest country that has ever been in the world. Now, a lie was told to you so many years ago that there is an American dream and everyone should travel to the US to make a life. Now, later on, most people are realizing that living in America is becoming a hell. Like, the life is becoming so unbearable. A lot of insecurities are now happening at the moment. And I looked at a survey yesterday, and 68% of Americans felt like America is no longer a safe country anymore because of assassinations that are taking place, unaliving of people, and so many other things in major cities and in major towns. Now, do we really can we really say that the US is collapsing? However, that can also be true, and it also depends on whatever context we are talking in. For example, the US has been a very good country, a country that has suppressed people first, and it was considered great. A country that built its economy on the back of the black community and many other races that lived in the US. Now, this country has oppressed so many people. So many people have worked here without receiving a penny. They worked for 400 years, and others are still surviving just in this country. Now, a country that has been built by the blood of another race is never a blessed country. Reparations have never been paid up to date. That's right. You look at the gap between the poor and the rich is getting wider. And that explains why we might consider US a falling economy at the moment or a collapsing economy. It doesn't really mean that the US is poor to be termed collapsed. The things that are happening in the US right now, the allies that the US had for a very long time, the loyal allies, are now rooting for China, Russia, and so many other countries. Now, countries that China, that the US really got a lot from, many countries in Africa where the US got their mineral resources, workers, labor, and so many other things, are now rooting for other countries, or those countries that are considered competitors of the US. Now, there is a debt and physical gridlock, and this is getting bigger. The US itself is in debt, and you can see that it owes people their money, it owes people other things. And this explains the reason why I'm saying that the gap between the rich and the poor is so big. Capitalism. Many people wake up every day to go and work, not to improve their lives, but to survive in the US. You have to go to work to pay your taxes, to pay your mortgage, and to afford the high cost of living that comes with living in the US. Now, compared to many other countries around the world where socialism took place, and maybe I'm not supporting socialism or capitalism, the fact that all these two have helped mess up some economies and the lives of people is not fair. Now, look at the gap between those at the lowest pyramid and the highest side of the pyramid, I mean the rich and the poor, you can see a very big difference. And that tells you the gap is big, and that threatens the security level in the US. Now, we have polarization, political divisions between Democrats and Republicans, and even inside parties have reached a level where basic governance feels impossible. Now, we all saw whatever happened yesterday. Some of the Democrats and Republicans, members of Congress, were to meet the US President Donald Trump, but their meeting didn't end up bearing fruits. And the Vice President came out, J.D. Vance, saying that the government is at the verge of shutting down if things continue the same they are. This means non-essential federal operations won't continue anymore, and this will force workers to be sent at home on a forced leave, and if at all they do not want to go home, they'll be forced to work without a salary. Now, we are talking about the greatest country. We are talking about a country that runs the economy of the world. And now let's bring it to this context. A lot of oppression has been done in the US, right? Slavery. Now, the US has oppressed its enemies for a very long time. Now, you look at the time of Iran and Iraq, look at the time in Afghanistan and Pakistan, you're going to understand how things work in this context. And you're going to understand that a lot of innocent lives have been lost in wars that were very unnecessary around the world. And it is for this reason that we are seeing a decline of trust. Now, there is no faith in government right now. There is no faith in the media in the US right now. And there is no faith in most of the institutions and historical laws. Many people are now feeling like the US is not the same country they could trust. You cannot trust the word of the president of the US even at the moment. You cannot trust the institutions in the US. You cannot trust their media because they have always run narratives, and they have always created narratives for you to believe some of the things that were wrong to be true, and those that were true to be lies. You can know how they have run narratives across the world to unalive or to bring down leaders that said no to their policies or said no to exploitation of their people. Now, I'm not here to discuss about how some good leaders, how we have had some good leaders in the past that were brought down by the same US. You actually know that's true. But their media came out to paint these people in a different way that will make you hate them. And it is for this reason that we are actually seeing again that the US is now struggling to keep the foreign policy that it has had with so many countries for a very long time. We had some good allies to the US, mostly in Africa and Southern America and some parts of the Caribbean. Now, even in Europe, now, can you say they are still good allies? Some of the countries that used to partner with the US so much in business and in every other thing, in the security sector, they have now rooted for China and Russia, the main components or opponents of the US. Now, if this is happening, it means China and the US and Russia are going to get a big support from most of the countries that were initially allied to the US. And this brings the US to an isolated country, a country with no allies, a country with no good neighbors, because it has invaded the peace, the stability, the political arena, social and economic are packed in all of these countries. And no country right now, most of the countries do not feel safe with the US. They rather will feel unsafe with Russia but stay there because Russia does not interfere or meddle with the political or social or economic life of most of its allies. It remains to do business and business alone. Now, this explains the reason why the US is very bitter right now. You can see when the US president is talking, he is actually commanding other countries to listen to the US. But these countries have long moved to working with other countries. Now, most white people feel like this is a punishment from God because not all Americans feel this is okay. Like the things that are happening, they are not normal. And for this reason, some might want to draw the biblical lens part of it, that Christians interpret national crisis through scripture. They see natural disasters, moral decline, or economic trouble as sins that God is judging the nation, similar to whatever happened in Israel in the Old Testament. Lol, I think this is crazy. Most people feel like God is punishing them not because of the things they did, but because of the sins people are committing, and because God is wanting to make America great. I don't know. But for my understanding, I know that the US has done a lot of trouble to the world. However much it has done good, but you can also consider the part that the US has been at the center of so many wars around the world. So many people lost their lives during these wars. The US has also overseen slavery for a long period of time, oppression of the black community. It has overseen so many other crimes taking place at the glare of justice. Now, if all these things have happened, why do you think, or why don't you think that this is God in other way punishing you for things that you did that were not good or pleasing his eyes, if actually you believe in religion and Christianity and the power of the Almighty God? Now, the black community has long been talking about the judgment day, that you did this to us, you've never paid reparations, you do not actually apologize and change your ways, because we've seen a lot of apologies that have not changed. Like, people apologize and still remain the same. And if all these things continue this way, the judgment is coming. The wrath of God is going to fall on you, America. And nothing is going to work as much as you don't apologize and change your ways, from your government, from the people, and from anyone and everyone who took part in slavery and every other thing that took place. Do you really want to say that the US is being punished, or it is economical mistakes that the US is making? Let me know in the comment section. And thank you so much for having taken your time to watch this video. I really appreciate, brothers and sisters. If it's your first time on this channel, please consider subscribing, sharing, commenting, and liking these videos. Share it with your friends so that the truth might come out here and be known to the whole world. Thank you.